Pio, you're muted on StreamYard.
Goodness. Oh my goodness. My apologies to everybody watching the YouTube feed. I was muted on StreamYard. Very rare misstep there. Anyway, today we are going to be discussing the SEC surrender against Ripple, NFTs and cryptos once in a blue moon moment, and whether or not people should be concerned about Ethereum's price lagging behind other leaders in the space. We have Spencer on the show today. Always a pleasure to have Spencer on. But before we chat with Spencer, Nick, how you feeling this morning, buddy?
I'm doing all right, although it seems the space is rugging me here. This is unacceptable.
That's okay.
I'm now accepting a speaker invite. We'll see if this works. Doing pretty well.
Good. That's good. I'm good. Bunny, how you doing?
I feel great. Dude, I went to McDonald's. Not gonna lie. I went to McDonald's when I got home after dinner.
The portion sizes weren't up to Bunny's standards?
No, the portion size was fine. Dude. So actually, to be completely honest, I got a slice of pizza when I got back to Penn Station. And then when I got to New Jersey, then I went to McDonald's and then I ate that.
That's a hell of an evening of eating for you, buddy. I understand why you did that, though. Easy said that you talked about how you would hang out with Nick any day, and he's the funniest person.
I said every day. Yeah, he accused me of glazing Nick. I don't know if Nick knows what that means. But I don't think I was glazing. I think I just had a.
Bunny, can you explain glazing to Nick? He's not familiar with the term. It's a very Gen Z term.
I'm trying it without using certain words. Easy.
Well,
hold on.
Anyway,
it's like when you glaze somebody.
We went to dinner with Bunny last night, and our admin picked the restaurant, and it was a good restaurant, definitely a good restaurant. The rosé, Bunny got a drink, he got a glass of rosé, and when the waiter came in, or the waitress came and poured the rosé. Look, I mean, I think everybody kind of has different understandings of how much is an appropriate amount of wine in a glass. I don't think anybody's thinking that, half the glass should be full or anything, nothing crazy like that. Signal, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, at least, has always been a third of the glass would be an appropriate amount of wine, right? That just a third of the glass.
If you go to a good old English pub, they'll just top you up to the half. But if you're in a good restaurant, it's
they gave me a sip of wine.
Literally.
I took a photo of it because I was Bunny was sipping it, made no comment on it whatsoever. And I was just like, wait, hold up. That's how much they poured in your glass? And so he was going to keep drinking. And I was like, no, wait. So then the waitress comes over and I'm basically like, is this the amount that you normally pour in the glass? And she was like, we pour exactly 4.5 ounces because we find that provides the ideal sipping experience.
Real quick. The way she hit Nick with that, it was she might as well have said F off. She might as well have just told him, just get out of my face. It was
We had also been there for like 3. This was the first thing that Nick did. It was like 3 minutes into the dinner, he was complaining.
Then the Bunny got another glass, and that guy did an actual third of the glass pour, and we were like, hey, look at that, that's an appropriate pour. And then get this. Bunny got one more glass of wine, right? And the same waitress from the first one poured this one, and no joke, in a nice restaurant in New York, as she's pouring it, Nick and kind of Bunny, they were both like, literally like a little bit more. And she did an actual pour to a third of the glass. Like Nick's body language got her.
That wasn't what I said to her at that point. I was like, just so you know, the last guy that poured the correct amount. And that's what I was saying at that point in time.
Well, I think the real takeaway from this story is, you just can't take Nick anywhere. He's just embarrassing, man. Restaurants, public.
You can say that, but last detail, the way she walked away after that last pour, I've never seen anyone wear just like I hate these guys so much. Me and Buddy were talking about it. It might have been because me and Buddy were wearing baseball caps and we were the only people in the restaurant wearing baseball caps.
I didn't get that interpretation from her that I hate these people that much, but her general vibe as a whole was just kind of like garbage. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry that I'm eating here, like, and paying you for this honor of being at this place, which is just like an average New York place. Like, there's no, it's, I mean, yeah, it's decent food. The food is very tasty, but it's also just like the sort of disrespectful vibe that the waiter had. She sucked. Real quick, I also Googled glazing. And for those that are wondering, it's the action of installing Windows. So that's what the term actually means. I did look it on Urban Dictionary as well. And it's saying another term for when you are on another man's meat.
Oh, anyways, ladies and gentlemen,
fighting and sucking up to them.
Okay, Spencer, great to have you, buddy. How's it going?
Well, sorry, did that throw you off?
Going good.
I want to describe this act.
It was going better.
Who you been glazing, Spencer? Who you been glazing?
Comment.
No,
we're getting a little bit of delay from Spencer. Spencer, you want to maybe reset the Wi-Fi or something and rejoin? We're just getting like a heavy delay. Yeah, I'm looking at you not move your mouth and then sounds coming out. So we'll have Spencer back in a moment. Why don't we just dive into the weather report? It'll be a juicy episode since Spencer's here. Signal, please take it away.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. It is Friday. It is end of the week. We are coming in on Friday, October the 20th. Market volume at 13.2 million. Clemente says super hot fire. He means Blur's at 8.3, OpenSea at 3 million. On to the NFT market leaders. It's just green, green, green. You got apes and mutants. They're both up 5%. You got D-Gods. They're up 4%. You got Captains. They're up 5%. Up 5%, and they're ripped to 4.2 ETH. Other movers include those Windsor Wayana, that's up 10%. Opepin is up 16%, and Sproto Gremlins, that's a name we haven't heard in a while, that is up 20% to 0.9 ETH. Wowza. Over the past 24 hours, Sugartown Auras revealed yesterday, and the collection saw a small dip to 0.18 ETH, but overall the sentiment has remained high on the art. Some seem to think that the art closely resembled a mix of like an Azuki Bean and Reddit avatars, if they had some kind of baby there, but regardless, whatever, there were 8 sales above 1 ETH and the floor is holding strong. Speaking of Azuki, they announced a garden tour, which features 5 community-led events across Asia Pacific, and it starts in Hong Kong on November 2nd. The event attendees will receive a collectible stamp for their own personal garden tour passport. And that stamp, if you can't attend because you can't get to Hong Kong, you can actually buy one in support for $15, with all those proceeds going to the community event coordinators. Onto a PFP that we haven't heard about in a while as well. Llamaverse has been the quiet winner this week as the collection surged from 0.04 ETH to 0.18 after the founder announced he's actively having acquisition conversations, and their holders are calling for the next comeback story. This collection has reached an all-time high of 6 ETH in the past, and since the acquisition pump has pulled back, to 0.12 ETH, more of these rugs and acquisition seem to be happening this quarter. And then lastly, the SEC moved to dismiss their case against Ripple's executives. Crypto Twitter didn't waste any time digging into the SEC and Gary Gensler. Ripple's chief legal officer even went so far as to say, this is not a settlement by the SEC. This is a surrender. Ripple is up 7% in the last 24 hours. Those are the main headlines of the past day. Back to you folks in the studio.
Fantastic.
Llamaverse? I mean, are we still, that guy was, talk about rugs and acquisition. Wasn't NFT Llama that dude just like a rugger?
No, he was notorious for some pump and dumps. That was actually one of the first Discords that I joined in crypto Twitter. That's where I found a Solana channel that got me to dive into Sol. Was in the Llamaverse. He had a sub channel in there called Soul Boys, and it was crazy to watch that journey because he would find like low float 500 supply projects and call it alpha. He did it with this project called Holy Primes, which was 640 calculators. It was an iPhone calculator screen that had prime numbers on it. And I think he sent it as high as 2.4 ETH. So he got a lot of flack for that. The reason that the Llamaverse acquisition popped up was because somebody found his alt Twitter, where he hasn't posted on NFT Llama in probably 3 months. His alt Twitter has been hyperactive with him driving a Porsche, shooting guns, showing a house he has, and live streaming Valorant for the last 3 months.
I mean,
All
interesting
right, so he's a
stuff.
rucker, yeah. So okay, cool. I mean, we've just confirmed. But he had a Discord, so I mean that's good to know. That reminds me, there was like, I remember at one point during the bull run, you just go hop in different Discords and see what people were pumping. Essentially, one of them was like this bricks project, just bricks. And I remember,
Great project.
and I remember this collective of people pushing it to like 5 ETH or something like that, but because there was only 300 of them. I mean, there was no, wow, it's still 0.25 ETH. That's absolutely ridiculous. And they were just like, yo, man, this is just bricks, man. Like, this is so, and dude, this one like flew. It was ridiculous. What's the supply? Yeah, 500. There you go.
It's so rare.
It would basically be people in the Discord, and they're like, do this, do this, do this.
It was a different time, maybe a time that's going to come back. Just going to run through some stories from the Daily Digest and then chat with Spencer. We got Beeple Studio announcing a crypto winter wonderland party. It's going to be in December. It's available to CryptoPunk and Beeple holders. Wonder if Nick is going to go to that. We've been talking about the Michelin Explorer Club NFT collection. They cut their supply after only about 50% of the total collection sold out. Floor price saw 3x to 0.15 ETH before slightly pulling back to 0.12 ETH. Clemente?
I called this yesterday. I want to put that out there, make sure everyone remembers. I called it. So if you followed my play, buy my key for more information.
Polygon's PIP 29 proposal went live, recommending a 13-member Polygon Protocol Council featuring Zach XBT to ensure security and upgrading Polygon's smart contracts. Meme coin farming is officially live. You probably know that, though, if you were on Twitter at all yesterday. Users can earn meme points for various actions, including connecting their Twitter account, changing their username, tweeting, and more. Potatoes are the winner of the week, up 38% in the last 7 days. Takashi Murakami announced he will be releasing 8 new Murakami trading card designs, and the distribution method to Murakami flower holders will be shared at a future date. Clemente thinks that the flowers might be a good play over 60 to 90 days. 0.38 ETH, 10,000 supply, though, quite a few. Last but not least, Jack Butcher has teased Squiggle O'Peppins as a possible next set. The O'Peppin floor pumped 17% to 0.42. Unrevealed O'Peppins continue to have a higher floor than the revealed O'Peppins do. Those are your stories from the Daily Digest, posted to X every single day, also available at thenifty.com if you want to have it in your email. So we got Spencer here to discuss the NFT's once in a blue moon moment. So for the first time in a very long time, NFTs are pumping a little bit as crypto prices increase a little bit. According to DGen's Finance, NFTs have recorded $13 million in volume, and NFT prices are green across the board. Meanwhile, in the past 7 days, Bitcoin's up 10%, ETH is up 4%, and Solana is cooking up 24%. Me and Nick were talking about this last night at dinner, and I was impressed with how much Solana he had. It made me feel like I had messed up a little bit, weighting more towards Bitcoin and Ethereum than Solana. Spencer, why do you think NFTs are pumping alongside crypto? Nick?
Oh, I'm just wondering about this sequence in here, man. I mean, we got to come in with the fucking hot fire of the pump that's going on right now and fuel the energy as a result of it. And we're talking about NFTs. I mean, I'm over here, glazing all sorts of people. I got an erection right now, but I'm so excited about the situation of the crypto market. I'm just saying that's the level of excitement that I have at this moment, and we can't even acknowledge that. I want to hear Spencer's take. Do not get me wrong. I want to understand Spencer's take about the NFT market, but talk about a pump of all pumps. Piotr, I'm surprised you didn't start off the thing to being like, Bitcoin's back at it. Bitcoin's back. I'm just a little shocked.
When Bitcoin breaks 100K in the not so distant future, I will totally be like Bitcoin's back at it and everything. But 29K doesn't really get my rocks off. This is literally just expected. Anyway, Spencer, happy to have you on the show, buddy. What are you thinking about?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, my view, this is what's going on. And you know, you can discuss this, that, or the other about why is crypto pumping. But I think you're right to call out, you know, for a while, as crypto is pumped, NFTs have sold off, but this hasn't happened this way. And there's a very, very simple and direct correlation of what's going on here. And it's flooring protocol. And specifically yesterday, or whenever they launched Bored Apes, a crazy trade became available that pumped Bored Ape prices. And this was the trade. Are you guys ready for this? I don't know if you discussed this the other day. The trade was, you can buy a Bored Ape, max stake the ape coin, deposit the Bored Ape into a safe box on flooring protocol, sell the micro Bored Ape token. So you have no Bored Ape exposure, but you have the staked ape coin. Ape coin staked on a Bored Ape yields 60%. You can then short ape coin, and the funding rate is not 60% on the short, and you just get free money, right? And so this caused a lot of people to go buy a ton of apes, and that pushed Bored Ape prices up. And what we see is the whole market moves together, right? So when you have a lot of volume, you have a lot of price action on the top project, everything else creeps up behind it, right? You also have, you mentioned big winner Meme Land rolling out more stuff. It feels much more real this time that they're actually going to do the token airdrop based on the prior times when they thought they were going to do the token airdrop, because they're doing all the like incentivized stuff. So that's got some pumps going on. We've got the art world with Winds of Llama doing great. And then we've got some other kind of good stuff going on. It feels good, you know? And what you got to look at too is everyone talks about, everyone seems very quick to forget the massive pump across NFTs when liquidity from Blur was introduced. On a collection by collection basis, flooring protocol has as much liquidity as Blur today. And one of the biggest risks I think a lot of people had been pricing in was whenever the second Blur airdrop happened. Did I cut out for a second there? Am I good?
Yeah, but you're back.
Cut out for a sec, but now you're back.
All right. Whenever the second Blur airdrop happened, there was a lot of concerns that liquidity might disappear from the market. But the thing is, if it does, that's actually not so impactful now, because for the collections that are on flooring protocol, there's the same liquidity on flooring protocol as there is on Blur. And that liquidity is much smoother because flooring protocol liquidity is Uniswap positions, right? So it's not like people bidding and farming and pulling bids and yanking bids and bot farming each other's bids and Hanwei dumping on their bids. It's none of that. It's just Uniswap positions.
So Spencer, quick question. You tweeted out this strategy yesterday and deleted it within 2 minutes. Why did you delete the tweet?
People were like, "Don't talk about it," and I was like, "I don't know. I don't get into it on Twitter." But
this strategy, which is like the most crazy thing that I've ever even heard.
Well, it won't be a thing in 3 months.
It's a sushi roll trade just for NFTs.
Well, but this was a trade early on. Like people. So one of the most profitable trades in like January was this trade: stake ApeCoin, short ApeCoin. The problem with it, the reason that trade became unprofitable was because the price of Bored Apes went down so much that like the benefit from like staking ApeCoin and shorting ApeCoin and having like free roll yield off of the difference between the funding rate and the interest rate was that like you lost so much money on the Bored Ape that like it canceled out. But the thing that flooring protocol lets you do is remove the like remove the Bored Ape exposure from that trade, which makes it like smoother. And it's like, I think it's important that people understand what is going on to cause like why Bored Apes are moving right now. This caused like basically a 10% price movement in Bored Apes, with people buying to do this trade or speculating that other people were doing this trade.
And what relationship do you have with flooring protocol? Are you just a user, or did you invest in these guys?
We're a large liquidity provider on flooring protocol.
You're a large liquidity provider on flooring protocol.
And we own a bunch of tokens.
Okay, so you're incentivized for flooring protocol to do well. You think that the pump in NFTs is singularly due to this new platform, though?
I mean, so like, here's the thing that's wild to me about it, right? And this is why I think I spent the last couple of days like full attention on this protocol. Why? Because if like PIMP Capital, who was launching this protocol, bought like $50 or $60 million of NFTs in the last like 3-4 months, right? That's something like 2% of supply, 1 to 2% of supply of most major collections, sometimes more. They have like 1,000 Azuki elementals, and they're doing this all to seed liquidity on Flooring Protocol. That's insane. That's crazy. No one has ever in the history of any other market launched a protocol by buying 2% of the entire industry, right? Like that alone should cause you to want to look at this. You have to understand too, if PIMP Capital alone pairs liquidity with all the NFTs he's bought, that brings the TVL Flooring Protocol to the same as Blur with just his money.
Well, we're going to have to see if Flooring Protocol still exists in 6 to 9 months. It'll definitely be very interesting to see if it does. When it comes to, for example, Gutter Cat Gang's recent acquisition for $0, now Llamaverse considering an offer for 10 grand. I mean, like selling the NFT project for 10 grand. Are you attracted to these acquisition, opportunities? Because I know obviously you have a lot of Pudgy Penguins, Luca Nets, Pudgy Penguins. They've done quite well. Do you now view Gutter Cat Gang as a potential opportunity, or how are you thinking about these things?
I think whenever there's an acquisition in the space, it's worth meeting and doing diligence on the acquirer. I don't think that it is a blind ape anymore. I think that enough people have been cued into that trade that it maybe isn't as strong a trade anymore. Just because like there are a lot more acquisitions now than there were, say, 8 months ago. And I think that's good. That's healthy. But Luca Net's success is not just like they acquired a project and therefore succeeded. It definitely contributed to it. And I think it sets a person up for success, but Luca Nets has just been a good operator, right? And so you like step 1, pay attention when there's an acquisition. Step 2, see who the acquirer is during that acquisition and see how it goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely.
Sorry, Pete, I wanted to ask Spencer a question about flooring, right? One of my concerns earlier in the week, Spencer, was that it seems to be that this product is for power users, especially people who've come from using Blur in sort of quite a heavy way over the last 6 to 9 months. And now the flooring protocol, the strategy that you just set out, I would say, a small percentage of people either know about that trade, would be able to implement that trade, or would have the interest to do that trade. There's not a huge amount of people, but you're one of them. Aside from that strategy, if somebody's not like a power user, why would you use flooring protocol if you don't know how to implement these kind of strategies?
Well, so this is the thing that's interesting, right? I actually totally agree with you. Flooring protocol is like a harder to wrap your head around, like more difficult to get an understanding of, like nerdy protocol in a way that even Blur like isn't quite, right? Like, and you even see this from how they name their tokens. Like the token name starts with a Greek letter. These are micro Pudgy Penguins, right? But like this is not meant to, like, this is not a protocol that is designed to be super user friendly. But it is designed by someone who I think PIMP Capital's like last job was like CTO of a hedge fund, right? Like this is a very like techie nerdy product. And I think though that like may not be a bad thing, right? Because the thing is, the people putting on the Bored Ape Yacht Club ApeCoin short trade, that's like a hedge fund trade. That's not like and that's actually good, right? Like, so the people I know who are doing it, and this is what piqued my interest a lot, and this is why you see price move, is it's not the same 20 people that we trade back and forth with in like NFT Twitter, right? These are people who are like, I know some people who are like Bitcoin miners that were like, oh, this is a trade I understand very well. It's pretty easy. I'm just going to put it on, right? People who are more sophisticated with bigger bankrolls have an interest in NFT because of this ability. And like, this is, I think, what I'm about to say, I'm not convinced this is going to happen, but this is like the potential thing that can happen. That is the big outcome of new net inflows as a result of the protocol, right? Is there's a lot more people in the world, and we forget in NFT land, there's a lot more people in the world who very frequently trade ERC20s that are involved in Uniswap pools than that trade NFTs that are on NFT exchanges, right? There's a lot more trading firms that have infrastructure for trading ERC20s. So the question is, can we get new net inflows of capital to NFTs because they're making them ERC20s that are incentivized by the protocol to be in Uniswap positions? Does that make it more attractive for someone like a market maker to step in? does that make it more attractive for someone like for someone who has, you know, some sort of automated strategy around Uniswap pools to step in? Does that make it more attractive for any sort of group? Even take that to the further conclusion. This is, I think, the less likely than those, but like even bigger outcome is, does a custodial ERC20 exchange list a micro token, right? That would be incredibly interesting because, you know, we saw like Coinbase try and segregate out a marketplace for NFTs. It wasn't custodial. It was blah, blah, blah. But now, like, if they could list micro Pudgy Penguin, it would just be interesting, right? I don't think Coinbase will, but I think we might see this from smaller exchanges.
I thought that Coinbase was going to do this when they introduced their NFT marketplace before, or I was hoping at that time, I thought it was interesting if you could convert NFTs into essentially ERC20 tokens. I'm no longer of the same mindset, only because, like, I mean, I guess you can fractionalize art. That is something that does exist. There's like Masterworks and there's other things. I think there's competitors to Masterworks as well that essentially enable that sort of functionality. That said, the vast majority of NFTs are undeserving of such structures to be associated with them. The ability to have liquidity to enter in and out on these projects is great. That said, it's such a weird position. Is kind of why I've become more bearish on it. Is like Blur, for example. More volume, less users. And the reason it has less users is because it's like a power user platform, essentially. And take that power user platform to a more extreme degree, and you end up with flooring, basically, where you have, with the exception of, I do know people that have gone and purchased like fractionalized versions of apes and punks. And for basically 100% of those people, that trade failed. Like it just never worked out. And so, like, if you're going to be a collector of a thing, then I feel like that's what the market is for NFTs, be a collector for that thing. Yet in crypto land, we want to securitize everything without calling them securities. We want to add liquidity to a thing that shouldn't have liquidity. We want to, like, it's basically like forcing these things so that we can like get together and plot out like what the calculus, the derivative of some various asset is, so that we can end up trading futures like Alameda, only to just steal that money from customers. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like the whole plot line is for me to somehow extract a bunch of money out of this thing, which probably shouldn't be extractable. Like, I guess that's kind of my vibe with some of these advanced protocols, is that it's just like, yo, this is so overly convoluted, just for the point that, like, it was fun while I was trading JPEGs, and like I like my punk, but like for me to go and do all these like derivative things off of it feels very niche, and it also feels like that's not the way. Like, that's not the path toward, like, the real question is what makes these NFTs actually valuable versus just throwing a bunch of liquidity into this space so that I can sell a baseball card within 5 seconds is really what it feels.
But I think you just answered your own question, right? Like you said, what makes these NFTs valuable? And the answer is liquidity, right? Like,
well, no, would you say that a Michael Jordan card rookie card is valuable purely because of liquidity, or because people also
definitely.
like? But I would argue that a big portion of that is that it's valuable because also people value owning that card. Like, there's
Like
a
relevance of
wait,
history.
wait. But value owning that card, isn't that the same as liquidity?
no.
Because value can increase despite liquidity. Like, you can have some, it's just based on supply and demand. It's based on what someone's willing to pay for it. But liquidity is just the instant ability to move an asset. But I'm like also, I guess, worried about flooring protocol, because we've seen these plays of fractionalization multiple times, and I understand there's more liquidity on this specific one. But like, we've never really seen fractionalized NFT assets gain any level of adoption, because the reason people kind of like these assets is access that it provides and the opportunities that come with it. And by owning a fraction, I think the main use case, I guess, would be like perps, like being able to long and short these. There's just a lot of things here, like moving parts. And I think Nick kind of hit the nail on the head is like the core of NFTs was like people would log on, press a button, buy something that they could then potentially trade. And like there's not much shorting or fractionalization of cards and stuff like that. They don't have significantly near the liquidity of just buying the card or regular collectibles in general.
Well, we are moving towards a world separate. Well, Pia, I also want to hear what you think. What we are moving towards a world where there are different versions of those NFTs. For example, I think blind box format of this, and then making those tradable seems to be the main pattern, like main direction at this point.
Loot box model is a big thing. Like,
yeah, loot box, blind box, whatever you want to call it. But that to me is something that still feels consumer friendly, consumer accessible. It feels something where like, oh, I have this thing that I like. Like Bunny last night was saying, I like my Bored Ape. Like I genuinely actually like the board. There's some element of this. Same with art where you actually like the painting, right? Like where you like the thing that's hanging on the wall that you just bought, not just the fact. Someone that's worth $100 million and has a massive painting collection, or like antique collection, they do track the value of that asset, in spreadsheets or wherever they end up putting it, but they're not like actively trading that asset like back and forth. And that's the thing that I think is a leap here. So when you asked about that, Spencer, that is the distinction that I think about. Like when you go sell at the Sotheby's auction, this isn't like floor it. Like that concept of flooring that asset is something that literally exists primarily within the NFT space. And then I guess you could argue eBay if you really wanted. But even in the case of eBay, it's not this concept of like flooring it to bidders. Like that's just not a thing that exists. So this is a new introduction of something in this space. And then all the flooring stuff is a derivative on top of that.
Well, so one of the things that like,
I was just going to say Bunny's had his hand raised. Bunny, what's going on?
Yeah, so Spencer, you had me in the first half on your flooring protocol take until I realized you buried the lead. You're a liquidity provider, and you were just shilling the thing. It was a hard shill. You didn't say #ad or I partnered with. That's undisclosed paid promotion. That's straight to jail, dude.
Well, what I was going to say is Spencer does have a massive vested interest in flooring protocol. I've said this about Frentech. I've said this about other platforms. I want these platforms, these products to grow, and I want the space to grow, and I want people to make quality stuff. I don't care about any platform in NFTs until it's been around for 6 months. Again, I've just been brutalized by the market at this point. If it's around in 6 months, I'm down to talk about it every single day. I don't want to talk about it too much more. Spencer, you had a thought that you wanted to get out there before we move on from flooring protocol for 6 months.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a foolish decision, but you can do whatever you want on the show. But like, I think so when I talked with the PAMP Capital, right, like his thing was like, look, like shitcoins, like market cap is like unreasonably high relative to the price of like NFTs, right? Market caps. And so like his thesis was, well, if you just make NFTs into shitcoins, like maybe then they can pump because like they can get stuff like exchange listings. They can get access to like market maker liquidity. I don't know if I totally agree with that take, but I think it's like interesting to watch play out now, right?
Sure, man. And the show will go on without discussion of flooring protocol. We'll be good for 6 months. Nick, go ahead.
Quick. The thing I was going to say, so I did end up on Urban Dictionary as a result of that, looking for to learn about the meat riding concept here. There's also another term, a sort of disease that's been going around that I've also personally been suffering from. Are you familiar with CBD?
What is that, Nick?
It's chronic back pain from carrying this big dick around.
Bro. What the fuck?
I mean, that's a fire Urban Dictionary lookup right there.
Oh, he's spitting.
That was absolutely hilarious. Well, moving on.
From that CBD.
Moving on, we've got the commenters are absolutely cooking. Moving on, we've got Nick. What would you rather talk about? Would you rather talk about whether Ethereum isn't? Oh, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I want to talk about this pump. I think there's actually some legitimate commentary to provide here. And I'm curious if anybody else is looking at the current pattern that Bitcoin is in at the
Head,
moment.
shoulders, knees and toes,
Yeah.
knees and toes.
And I'm just like, all right, well, if this isn't a head and shoulders pattern, then this actually, like, I'm waiting to see if Bitcoin can break through this 30,300
Close at
sort of level.
31K. Invalidates head and shoulders, and there's a head and shoulders on the weekly for Sol, actually like probably the daily, and ETH just does not have relative strength in comparison to both, which was like more surprising to me. You're gonna see all kind of trend up. The XRP news, I think, is actually what kind of sent this, because a lot of people were not anticipating XRP's case to just be thrown out. Like, that was crazy. Was like, I think the CEO of XRP basically saying, this is not a win, this is an SEC surrender. I was like, damn, my man's spitting bars. And for him to go on and say that was like, wow. And Gensler just to have no comment on it was crazy. You now have Larry Fink not even saying the word Bitcoin because he doesn't want to potentially have a conflict of interest. He just keeps calling it a flight to value or flight to safety or whatever it is. But there's like all these things shaping up right now that's really backing my personal thesis, was that Q3 2023 was Pico bottom of like this relief drop. And it's looking like that, if this holds, is going to shape up beautifully going into next year. Bitcoin ETF in the next few months is what analysts are now saying. We saw that pseudo pump off of Cointelegraph news, which just shows how much sideline capital is waiting for the real thing.
I do think that, like, so there's no doubt that this is an accumulation phase, and it's a great opportunity to just be adding. I even think Solana at 27 is still interesting personally. So like I'm still accumulating Solana. I'm also accumulating. It's good to add Bitcoin. I see a lot of people adding Bitcoin, but I think Solana has a 1000x upside over the Bitcoin side of things. Both are great. But the technicals right now are really actually interesting. Even on Solana has pulled up again, back up against this 2750 level. That is what I look at. And it came up, bounced off of it. And I'm interested in seeing how this evolves. Maybe I can actually pull that up on my, let's see if this lets me do this. Sol USD. So regardless, and it doesn't look like it's letting me do that. So we'll try that another time. But I'm still waiting to see whether or not this pump, the same thing that I saw when I remember when who's the guy that you love for Mike
Alfred?
Mike Alfred had posted a thing about Bitcoin's never going back to whatever level. I think it was 23K or 25K may have been what he had said. I have no idea, honestly. I would not be surprised though to see potentially one more return back to there. And so I'm just interested, like, regardless, the thing that's awesome about this is seeing these pumps. It's just more validation that, like, yeah, there is another wave coming. And there's like, I just keep accumulating here because it seems like one of the best trades that you can make right now is like, why wouldn't you try and get a 400% return on anything at this point? Like, it just feels like if you go buy a stock to get 400%, your stock portfolio to go up 400%, it's almost basically something that doesn't happen. Like, you're not getting that.
No, you got to hit something with a short squeeze or something that gets pushed by Wall Street bets before they push it, or with massive open interest on either side. And you need an options trade to do it. Like, you're not even buying the shares at this point. A 400% gain is crazy. Like, on traditional markets, especially right now, where if you looked yesterday, Powell had comments on the market and essentially nuked the market, and then it rebounded heavy because of his comments. And then protesters stepped in, and sure enough, that led to him to not have further comments. But he was going back and forth on, like, tightening, if it's working, saying the economy can't sustain the way that it is, but also they can't print right now. So it was like this whole back and forth comments that led to a lot of volatility yesterday, only for the XRP news to really just like send us.
So, yeah, I'm there. There is bearish headwinds, I feel like, with the interest rate stuff, which is my main thing that I'm just like, it's hard fighting against that at the moment. And I'm not as much in the camp of like they're going to start printing like imminently. Like there's been that sort of thesis that by the end of this year that they'd start cutting rates again and printing. I'm not in that camp. I think they keep pushing interest rates as long as there's bullish economic signals, which there has been. I think the last employment data came out is like more jobs added. And right now we're at, I think the big milestone was the 10-year treasury at 5% was like the news that was yesterday or the day before that we were seeing that. I just am not in the camp that they're just going to start cutting immediately on this. There is like the other chart I see is like the debt that is just accumulating as a result, and the fact that this interest rate makes that debt more expensive. So if there is a cutting, you would have to see like, and exactly someone's saying wars to fund. So that is like the one the weird balance that needs to be done at this point is that our debt needs to be financed, and when the interest rate is high and you have this astronomical debt, it does put you in a pretty tough position. So I don't know. It's not clear what's going to happen, but I'm not sure. The main bullish catalyst at this point is the Bitcoin ETF. But I also think price begets price action in the crypto space, but it's never broken away holistically from the broader market yet. And so that's the thing where I'm just like, the DXY did come down a little bit. Like we saw a little bit of a pullback.
It rejected off of a long-term trend line is what it did. Was it didn't actually flip over this downtrend that it's had for literally years, which is crazy. Like dating back to, I think it was like 2019, it's been in this downtrend, which to me was wild to see, because if it did flip that, I would have just been like, we're actually in for some hurt over the next 4 to 6 months figuring it out, which also would have been good for the interest rate conversation and them actually seeing the economy do what they want it to do. So it was a rather interesting chart. The DXY is the one that I really like. That's one of the first ones I look at when going through and like looking at charts, because that has for so long now dictated the market trend.
Spencer, what do you think of all this?
I don't know. You know, like I think like one of the big things, right, was like Bitcoin ETF stuff was like maybe not priced in. Maybe that was the whole revelation everyone had when it got announced, and now it probably is priced in. We also see like macro sentiment, you know, stepping out of crypto for a moment is just better now than it's been in a while. And I think that's a meaningful shift, right? Like, you know, you see the Fed come out and say they're probably going to stop raising interest rates, right? So that's kind of like we gotten over that hurdle. You see stocks are like kind of back at all-time highs. You know, there's no bear market in stocks, right? And so like the question is, when is the next macro bull market? You also see like, you know, geopolitical risk escalating, and unfortunately like geopolitical risk is like inversely correlated to the markets. So like, or it is positively correlated to the markets, excuse me. Because people, you know, are like, okay, well, what could cause interest rates to go down, cause economic, you know, booms, etc. It just kind of makes sense, right? I think the question is, you know, EPO you posed earlier was like, you know, Bitcoin or ETH, right? Spot Bitcoin ETF has a more obvious impact on Bitcoin price. Why is ETH lagging? Well, you know, we see less spot ETH ETF being approved, right? The other thing you have to think over a long enough time horizon is, at what point should you be looking at something like Rocket Pool ETH or STETH versus actually looking at ETH, right? Because one of the benefits of holding long ETH is that you can hold it staked. And so even if it slightly lags to Bitcoin, you actually should, I've taken to looking at the Rocket Pool ETH chart versus Bitcoin instead of like just vanilla ETH. And that's actually a little bit better.
Interesting take.
The reason Rocket Pool ETH versus STETH is because STETH, you yield more STETH per function of time. Rocket Pool ETH represents more ETH per function of time. So it goes up based on like what the value of a staked ETH at its inception is. And so that the price of one Rocket Pool ETH it like should increase above the price of ETH as a function of time.
So are you holding, is your ETH in Rocket Pool?
We have a mix across different LSDs, but we have, so STETH yields higher. Rocket Pool is more tax efficient. So if you're thinking about, because like in Steth, you get additional assets. So in the US, there's a tax liability on earning additional assets, but the yield is higher. But Rocket Pool, the asset just appreciates. So unless you sell it, there isn't a tax liability on the earnings. So if you have ETH that you're planning to sell within the next unit of time, and you're in the US and paying US taxes, if you're going to sell it anyway, you may as well have it in Steth. But if you're planning to hold it for like years and years, it maybe is better to have it in Rocket Pool.
There's also the Solana staking protocol. I forget what that one's called. Easy. What one do you use?
For what? For what staking?
Solana staking.
The validators? Or
I
are
don't
you
know.
talking
How
like
do you make money on Solana?
I use
like
Soul Blaze, which is a liquid staking for it. It earns me like 8% APY. So that's one way. There's a few others. MarginFi has a couple options. But a lot of people just stake to the validator, which is between 6 to 8% without smart contract risk. So Sol still being inflationary does have a pretty high yield just because of that alone, which gives like we just saw FTX's estate stake all of theirs, all their Solana, which was like over $100 million worth.
That's actually, I think, the biggest mistake I'm making at this moment is not staking my Solana, because that's just additional. I think some like 8% yield or something like that right
and
now.
that's no smart contract risk. The epochs unlock about like every 3 to 5 days, depending on which validator you stake to. You can stake with liquid options, which can be unstaked anytime. So there's a couple different options on how you actually stake your Sol that can give you varying yields and rewards. I think even the highest right now is closer to 9.
So Figment is the I
That's
think
one option.
Is that Figment.io?
I believe so. Yeah, and I can double check on that. There's a lot of different liquid staking Sol options. Yeah, Figment's the institutional staking, which is what a few use. But I can send you a list. There's like a list
Ledger works with that, but they take a fee off of that staking. But yeah, that to me seems like one of the biggest opportunities right here. If you're holding onto these assets, that additional yield is huge. To be able to get 7% on top of this for the upside, that's massive. Like
I mean,
don't
the
know.
timeline's really pushing it. You got a lot of like really smart long-term traders who are like, my goal is just get 1,000 Sol and stake it across different validators, like multiple times over, where they're just earning fat percentages on it. But it's not like these 60, 70, 80, 1,000% APYs. Like it's in a more realistic range that feels a little bit better, especially when you look at tokenomics of Sol, where you're like, okay, this actually makes sense why validators are doing this because the foundation's subsidizing fees and other things and rewarding participants for decentralizing the network. So that's where I look at it. And it's like, this just feels safer.
Is this not just proof of stake yield?
I think so. I can double check.
I mean, that's what ST ETH is, right, Spencer?
I'm gonna be honest, guys. For the last like 6 minutes, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. The only thing I was curious about from a very like simple point of view is like Solana in the last 30 days is up 30% or so, around there, 25 to 30%. Ethereum's up like 4%. It's basically a stable coin. All I'm seeing on Twitter is ETH Maxey's getting dunked on. Nick, I know you're kind of 50-50 between being an ETH Maxey like you're a fan of Ethereum. Should I be concerned? Because like probably 80% of my crypto bag is in Ethereum versus Solana. And I'm like, dude, what the hell is going on?
I'd look into diversifying. Like right now, I'd say like my allocation right now is like a 40, 30, 10, 10, and then some USDC. And it's like 40% Sol, 30% Bitcoin, 10% AVAX, 10% ETH, and then the remaining 10 is still in stables. So I have some liquid capital to deploy at various points. But I prefer to diversify with Sol leading the charge. I don't think ETH is like gonna not exist, which some people are like, this will never work. Fees are too high. It's gonna always have a place. But right now, people are realizing risk reward potential is outweighed on some of these smaller coins, especially looking back at the multiples that they're trading under.
Yeah, regardless, or Clemente, to your thing, I think Easy saying diversify. That's straight on. Should you be concerned? No, dude. When eventually they all like when Bitcoin goes up, when ETH eventually goes up, it all ends up happening. All ends up happening typically that the first goes Bitcoin, then goes the altcoins. Solana is one that I think is just leading right now, primarily because it got knocked down so significantly, and there's so much activity taking place there. It's maybe it was just underpriced or something like that. But I don't think I still think that Solana has the highest upside. And so I'm like, if that has the highest upside, why am I not mostly weighted towards the thing with the highest upside? But obviously you don't take all of your money and ape into like one high risk, highly volatile thing. So I have it across 3 volatile things.
Well, so here's how I think about it simply, and I'm glad you said that. Then I want to go to Spencer right after this. Is everybody knows I'm obsessed with Bitcoin. Obviously, everybody knows that. I don't need to like reiterate it. I don't even need to talk about Bitcoin right now. If you're the fact that ETH is lagging the way that it is, and the fact that there's this much concern over ETH, it inherently makes it a good time to buy Ethereum for the long term. However, a lot of people that listen to this show are looking to buy something today and sell it at a future date, and they're singularly concerned about what will give me the maximum upside if I buy it today to sell it in the future. I find it very hard to focus on any asset other than Solana when you think about it that way. Obviously, you can name a bunch of meme coin bullshit that's insanely high risk that you'll probably get lit up on. But yes, there will be random meme coin bullshit, maybe even Dogecoin, maybe Pepe, I don't know, maybe Shiba Inu, something, some other BS that outperforms Solana. But as far as like quality stuff, Solana sold off extra hard last year. It sold down to $8. If you go look at the percentage off of the all-time high that it was at, because of its association with FTX, we're now finding out that FTX was like turning off the Solana network to do,
that was a fake post. That was a fake post.
Okay,
post.
That was a fake post. There you go.
So many people ran with that.
Regardless, the point is there was an association with FTX. Everything sold off heavy. Bitcoin went below the previous cycle all-time high, which had never happened before in the history of Bitcoin because of that black swan event. But nothing sold off harder than Solana. We've built an NFT project on Solana. We're aware of how robust Solana is. Solana is now going to be settling transactions for a major credit card company. There's a lot going on there. I find it, and the price is low. Normie people like to buy the things with the low price. People don't want to buy a $30,000 Bitcoin when they don't understand the thing, and they're basically looking at a gamble. I have this guy texting me. He's like, I want a 10X. I want a 10X. This is how like normal people think. He's like, a lot of people have been talking about Doge recently. Like this is like what is going on in the world. The Solana price at $27 to me is a straight up steal. It's a straight up steal. Yeah, here's a crypto's ripping, ape out, buy low, sell high. Like this is real stuff, guys. And so like, yeah, like Solana, it's going to be, in my mind, hard to outperform Solana. When you think about risk versus reward, there's way riskier stuff that could outperform it, but Solana ain't going to zero in the next 4 years. Just not. And Mike Dudas had a tweet that Clemente referenced that I think is super relevant as well. I think it's going to outperform ETH. I have a bunch of ETH, a bunch of Bitcoin, and a bunch of Solana. But if you're looking for this whole buy it today, sell it in the future, like what gives me the most price appreciation, best combo of risk versus reward in my mind has to be Solana. I don't know what else it could be. Spencer, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, we've gone on a little bit from this, but I was going to say to Clemente that like, if you don't know what LSDFi is and your big position is ETH, A, I agree, diversify, but B, like, you should, if you're just holding ETH, you should have staked ETH. Like there's absolutely no reason to not do that. And like, that is one of the benefits of it. And I think, Pio, your point was actually like incredibly correct, right? Like one of the interesting things about something like Solana is Solana can move off of like normie money, right? The thing about when you get to something with the market cap of ETH, the market cap of Bitcoin is like, that needs institutional money to move, right? Retail doesn't move the needle on it in the way that it does elsewhere, right? And we see this with Bitcoin, right? The idea of a Bitcoin spot ETF is the line of sight to real institutional capital coming in, and that moves the needle for it. We don't have as clear a line of sight to ETH ETFs, although I think it's pretty obvious that once Bitcoin spot ETF gets approved, ETH spot ETF is the next one up, right? Like that, I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say Solana ETF is coming before ETH ETF is, but it's just a different trade, right? Because these are completely separate assets, right? And so you got to look at like, what is like the narrative around these different things and what is the risk tolerance, right? You talked about the estate for FTX staking a lot of their Solana. Like one of the challenges of buying Solana for institutional capital is that like that estate could just sell it all, right? They may not market sell all, but they may. And that could have downward pressure. And that's sort of been looming over Solana for a while. But I agree with you. I think that it's likely been very oversold on that rumor of like, oh, they're going to sell it all. I think they're not idiots, right? I mean, there was a lot of idiots involved in FTX, and there's a lot of idiots involved, especially early on in the liquidation process. But like, it's enough money where like they'll at least tee you up out of it, right? They're not gonna like just go, oh, like let's press the sell button into the liquidity pools.
The red candle would be enormous. It'd be iconic. The
I want them to do it.
So many people are calling
you know
for
what?
it.
Really,
Like,
what they
just
should
get
do,
past
what
it.
they should do, is they should short Solana first.
Use half the
Make
funds
back
to
the whole
short it.
hole in the balance sheet in one trade.
Do it. Let's go. I'm good with it. And I want to make one comment on Ethereum too, and then I want to hear from Signal. Like, I get it when people that are super obsessed with Ethereum talk about the potential of Ethereum. I totally get it. I don't want people to think that I don't. And so Ethereum is also, I'm like heavily exposed to Ethereum. I mean, 20 plus Ethereum, that's a lot, ladies and gentlemen, you know, or at least it is for me. I totally get where these people are coming from. Where they're like, look, this whole digital ecosystem is kind of running on ETH. You got layer 2s getting traction on ETH. It's all on the Ethereum layer. Where they lose me is when they're like, ETH is the new money. It's going to replace Bitcoin. I've gone on record. We don't even have to talk about that, right? That's where they lose me. But I do see like a crazy future. The other thing I think about is for any of these things to totally fail, for ETH to totally fail, for Solana to totally fail, the time horizon is like a long time. It's going to take a long time. It's almost like you built a whole city. It takes a while to take a wrecking ball to the entire city. You know what I mean? So it's not like there's risk of these things going to zero in the next 2 years anyway. So just don't panic, you know? Spencer, did you want to say something before we go to Signal?
Well, I want to jump in here too. I think one of the interesting things to watch in the crypto space right now is where is price action based on usage versus based on macro, right? And like a lot of the Bitcoin price action and actually even Solana price action feels very macro driven. Whereas you look at something like ETH, you look at something like Matic, actually, I think is a great example of this, where like the Matic tokenomics is very much based on usage, right? And so I think you see a harder time for Matic to run without like increased usage of Polygon network. You see a harder time for ETH to run without, now that people can do the math, right? ETH is inflationary, deflationary based on usage, right? Based on how much gas is consumed. And so like that's where it's interesting to see, you know, where something like Bitcoin, like people obviously care a little bit about usage of the Bitcoin network, but I think much more so Bitcoin is seen as an asset that moves with macroeconomic conditions, right? Or acute things like the spot ETF. And so,
and it's 4-year cycle, right? As a commodity.
And the halvening.
Yeah. I mean, it's
May or
a
may
thing.
not.
And
yeah,
there's other commodities that run on 4, 8, 16-year cycles too. So it's not like that's crazy uncommon. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. But like, I think that it's actually healthy, right? Like I think it should be true that the assets whose tokenomics are more tied to usage should move more with usage than with macroeconomics, right? I think that that's actually a terminal end state of, and as you put it, Pio, like Bitcoin and Ethereum should serve completely different purposes in the crypto ecosystem. And so like they shouldn't be as correlated as they've always been at crypto's terminal state, I think, at least, right? Like if Ethereum is the like digital compute power of crypto and Bitcoin is like hard money of crypto, right? Then like hard money shouldn't move as a function of compute usage, and compute usage shouldn't move as demand for hard money. Like these should be distinct. And so, you know, I actually don't even see it as a failure of ETH that ETH is a stable coin right now because its usage hasn't spiked. And so like without usage spiking, it shouldn't go up in price, in my view.
I think that's a great take. I want to hear from Signal, but real quick, you just reminded me of one thing. We had Nathaniel Whitmore, NLW, the host of the Breakdown podcast on the Bitcoin show earlier this week. This guy is sharp. And you got to listen to the Breakdown podcast, like 9 minutes, like 12 minutes long. And he just breaks down everything going on in macro and crypto. It's fantastic. He's doing some cool stuff with AI. This guy is sharp. Anyway, one thing that we talked about is that the fundamental use case of Bitcoin is so simple that people don't even acknowledge it as a use case. Like it's so simple. It's like too simple for people to understand just the long-term store of value use case. That's why you see people on crypto Twitter being like Alex Becker will go on crypto Twitter and be like, there's literally zero use case for crypto. And it's just like, dude, like it's so simple that you're missing it and you can't understand it. And then when you think about Ethereum, which is a lot more complex, more like a software network, that's where that usage argument comes into play, Spencer. And I think you're totally right. Signal, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's interesting listening to you four on like you're kind of similar but different. And I think what I take away from it is like, where are you in your life? Because sometimes you'll watch these podcasts where you'll have like a really known guru, let's say someone like I forget his name, that Ramit guy, Ramit Sethi. He's sort of thought of as a thought leader in money, and his clickbait title will be "Don't buy a house," right? Or you go onto crypto Twitter and someone will say the only thing to go in on this year in the next 12 to 24 months is XYZ meme coin. And everybody has a different financial position of where they are, different ages, different risks. And when I think about the next 12 to 18 months, what I'm thinking about is like, okay, what is my total portfolio, including stocks, bonds, etc.? Like all those assets, what is that? And then how does that look like in relation to crypto? Because if Easy is saying, oh, he's 40% in crypto, that might not be his total portfolio. That might just be 40% of his crypto portfolio.
That's correct.
Is Solana.
Yeah, that's correct. I should have clarified that. That's correct.
No, but the thing is, you don't need to clarify. I think the point is sometimes when people hear these figures, they're like, oh, this person's portfolio is holding 40%, or that's their total portfolio. No, it's of their crypto portfolio. And the point is, it's like everyone here on stage can take a different amount of risk for a different amount for return for a different time horizon. What Spencer is trying to do versus what Easy is trying to do, what I am trying to do, it's all completely different. And I think when you're holding crypto, you need to be thinking about what is your time horizon? What do you want to hold? And what is your risk return over the next 24 months? Because some people will throw a Hail Mary and they will do that Dogecoin or whatever. And some people are like, you know what? I just want to sit this out or wait for Larry Fink to get it past the SEC and then wait for Bitcoin or whatever BTC or ETH ETF to pass. So I think that's my biggest takeaway is just understanding like what are you trying to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months in the context of your total portfolio.
Was thinking about buying Doge. A lot of people are talking about it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen,
You've thrown some Hail Marys though this month, PO. So you're doing pretty well. You're doing pretty well.
Didn't buy any of them. But yes, thank you, Sig, and great take, Sig. Look, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We do the show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern time each and every week. We discuss all things NFTs, crypto, macro, entertainment, gaming, and just about everything in between. Big shout out to Spencer. Make sure you give him a follow. That's at SGSand1, founder of Spencer Ventures. That's at Venture Spencer. Allegedly, he's also got a new Twitter handle coming up too. Always love having him on the show. Show's available on YouTube for the video feed. Also have the video feed on X. Also available on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Hope everybody has a great weekend. We will be